Hey everybody, I'm Andrew Harris with Confluence Outfitters. I'm here with Luke Geraty, and we are going to talk today a little bit about how do you get into fly fishing. You know, maybe you're new to fly fishing, or you just saw somebody do it, saw it in a movie, saw it in an ad on TV.
There's a new movie on Netflix. Did you?
No, what?
Yeah, Mending the Line, I think. It's pretty popular amongst the fly fishing community, which you apparently aren't connected to.
I guess not.
Got to get on the IG, man.
My feed's been giving me some other suggestions. So maybe you want to get into fly fishing, but you're not really sure how. So we're going to walk you through that. What is fly fishing? The easiest way to kind of get into it, kind of at the minimum, what kind of gear you're going to need. And then, if you want to take that next step into like, okay, I want to spend some time with a professional, like a guide to really figure it out. We'll kind of walk you through that as well. So, what do you think for gear, Luke? I mean, let's talk about.
Actually, what is fly fishing?
Yeah, what is fly fishing? Where can you do it?
When they ask me, like, what kind of what kind of fishing is that?
Yeah.
And because they always imagine us. I actually had somebody. Well, where do you catch your flies at? And they thought that I'd put a little tiny hook on those flies, but
that's the hard way.
So, yeah.
Right.
How do you define fly fishing usually?
The fly rod casts a fly line which is thick and heavy, and I think that's the big difference. I mean, with spinning gear, we're throwing something heavy on a really light line.
Yeah, it's the weight of the lure that's actually getting it out.
Yeah, and then with fly fishing, it's the weight of the line. We're casting this line almost like a lasso or something. The line's heavy, and we're casting it, and the fly is going along for the ride. Yeah. So usually the fly is pretty lightweight. It would never get out to where we want it to be, let's say 40 feet away from us.
Yeah.
We couldn't throw it out with the spinning rod because it doesn't weigh anything. So the line has to be heavy. So I think that's the big distinguishing characteristic.
So there's a technique and art of casting, which is kind of probably the big hurdle for a lot of people sometimes, right?
Yeah. It's the cast. It's not kind of a one and done kind of thing like it is with the spinning setup where you just tuck it out there all in one motion. You kind of have to cast back and forth a few times to get more and more line out to get it where you want to go. So it is different. It can take up a little bit more space, behind you for doing that back cast. So it's just it's a different approach.
Yeah. So and the rods are usually longer than your classic, gear fishing, because our rods generally are around 9 to 9.5.
Your standard issue fly rod's going to be 9 feet long. They get bigger and smaller, but that's a good place to start.
Okay. So the fly fishing, the way you define it is it's a different technique than your bait casting gear fishing situation. There is technique involved, so there is a little bit of you have to learn how to do that.
It is hard. That's one thing with fly fishing. It's hard to just go to the store, buy a fly rod, and just like cast it without somebody helping you out, or without watching maybe some YouTube videos on casting. It's a little more challenging than just grabbing a spinning rod combo and just
chucking it.
You could just go for it. So there is this element of the art of the cast, which is very surmountable. It's very doable.
Yeah. And maybe before we talk about some of the gear, what are maybe we could talk just for a minute about what are some of the reasons why people fly fish? Because I mean, I've had a lot of clients over the years who have talked about how they love they can get real super philosophical about the art and the presentation and all that, but it is a different vibe in some ways.
Yeah, I agree. I think with fly fishing, maybe the immediate result isn't there sometimes like it is with spin fishing. Like it can be harder than spin fishing.
Yeah. A little bit more challenging in times.
I think it can be more challenging, but the main thing that captivates a lot of people about fly fishing is there's not a lot of downtime. So the casting is kind of involved. So like
proactive.
Yeah, we're doing a fair bit of casting. It's kind of the opposite of, with the spinning rod, we might just take a worm and huck it out there and kind of sit around and wait.
Yeah.
Some people can't stand that, right?
Yeah.
Some people love that. It's great. But fly fishing, there's, in general, we're making multiple presentations to the fish. So, we might cast it out and leave it out there for 30 seconds or something. But then we're casting again. So you're kind of always doing something, and it's, I think,
if you're attention span, if you have attention span deficit, it's a good.
it might be good for you. Yeah.
I think that's accurate because there are some people that I mean, like I am that guy who I could never in a million years cast a bobber out there and just sit there and stare at it. I just can't do it.
And wait for the bell to ring.
Yeah, I just have to be doing something, you know. So yeah, so that's one reason.
Yeah.
I like to also, and this is true about spin fishing too, but there are some fisheries that seem to be very conducive to fly fishing, you know, as a technique. But it's like people say all the time, trout don't live in ugly spaces. Generally, there are a few.
Yeah.
But,
which will not be named.
Yeah, we will not name those places, but
Right.
it's beautiful scenery and
yeah, it takes you to some great places. And I think the casting motion is somewhat rhythmic, you know, and it's an easy way to just kind of lose yourself out there on the water and
good way to relax, therapeutic.
it's
Yeah, there are definitely. Well, let's not get too philosophical,
Yeah.
but let's talk about gear.
yeah.
Gear in clothing too. I mean,
Right.
I think a common question that people have is, well, what do I need?
Yeah.
Yeah,
What
so-
do you need? So you can go to a lot of fly shops and sporting goods stores and buy a combo outfit, which has a fly rod and a reel, usually with a nice case. So that's a good place to start if you're a beginner. Then you're going to need some a leader, some tippet, and some flies. Now, with you can fly fish for a lot of different kinds of fish, a lot of species. You can do it in lakes, streams, rivers, ocean. So don't want to get too far into the weeds, but you're going to need a rod and reel. You're going to need some terminal tackle, which is just kind of all the stuff after the end of the fly line to the fly, like your leader and tippet.
So let's slow that down for a minute.
Yeah.
Okay. So you've got a rod, a fly rod, or
Yep.
fishing pole, and then you've got a fly reel because you can't just take a spinning reel and put it on a fly rod. Really,
It just doesn't work.
Doesn't. Yeah. So you got a fly reel, and then on that you're going to have something called backing, usually, right? Which is just allows your it doesn't come out very often.
Yeah,
Except
yeah,
for steelhead.
yeah. I mean, Luke's probably never seen the.
I have
black.
never in my never actually.
The fly line is 90 feet long.
Okay.
And in general,
So the fly line is going to come off that reel, and that's the part you were talking about casting it out there. That's kind of it's a heavier line.
that's the spaghetti kind of stuff that we're casting,
It's
right?
thicker. And then you mentioned having a leader though. So there's going to be you're going to connect the end of that fly line to a leader.
Yeah.
And what is that?
So a leader is monofilament, like you're used to from spinning gear, but it's tapered. So it's fat to match the thickness of the fly line where it attaches to the fly line, usually with the loop-to-loop connection. And then it gets thinner as you go. And maybe it's 10 feet long. And at the end, it's, thin, small enough where it's going to fool the fish.
Yeah, the diameter is really
yeah.
tiny. Yeah, okay.
So then we have a fly. That's your most simple fly fishing setup.
Okay. Yeah, so that's kind of from the ground on up. So that's the fishing gear. And I know Fly Shop could be able to help you get all this stuff. And I will say, I think it's very helpful to do something like that where you can talk to somebody who actually knows.
Absolutely.
Rather than just purchasing. Because
yeah.
I've got a lot of gear that I just purchased that I probably
Right.
should not have run.
It's good to have some professional advice, and the rods come in different weights, different sizes that are appropriate for different types and sizes of fish. So, if you are going to mainly fish for, little bluegill and crappie and things like that, you would want a different size and weight rod than somebody who's going to be trout fishing in the Sierra Nevada mountains, So that's where, definitely get some professional advice on what's going to be the right kind of weight rod and length of rod for the area where you live and the fishing that you're going to do.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. And so then the fly selection, the same thing. There's generally some help and advice you can find on river reports or talk to a fly shop person, and that can help you.
Right, because there are literally a million fly patterns out there. But for any general locale or species, you can narrow it down to like a list of probably 10 types of flies.
Andrew has 4 There's just 4 you've never used.
Yeah.
Native flies.
One of each.
Yeah, one of each. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so that makes sense. So that's the fishing gear, which, so if rod, reel, line, leader, flies, and then there might be some other little things here and there.
Yeah.
But that all depends on what you're doing. But what about other gear? What's the common thing? Because a lot of times people want to know what to wear.
Yeah. So you can wear anything. Where it gets a little complicated is if you're going to be getting your feet wet. So for wading on streams, like we do a lot of small stream, medium stream, and river fishing in our area in Northern California. And so we do a lot of wading. And people ask me all the time, do I need to get waders and boots? Can I get away with like Tevas or water shoes? And the answer is it depends. Like if you want to go out on a summer day on a small stream and, try to catch a nice little trout in a small stream, for the first time, some closed-toed water shoes would probably do it. You might not be able to stay in the water very long if the water's really cold, but you could probably get away with it.
Yeah.
But then, okay, now you go and maybe you get hooked on fishing and now you want to spend like a full day out there next time. The water shoes probably aren't going to cut it.
Yeah.
For a full day, because what you'll find is you're going to bash your ankles and shins on a bunch of stuff.
Yeah. Like even just the walking in at times can be like, oh, I should not have done that. We'll wear pants when we're wet wading sometimes just because of the blackberry bushes.
Yeah, poison oak, blackberries, other things. Pants are a good idea. So getting into that, okay, I'm getting a little more serious about this zone. I think I like this. Yeah, I think I like this. I want to spend a solid half day thrashing around on a mountain stream. The water shoes aren't going to cut it anymore. Yeah. So what you're going to need to do at that point is get an actual wading shoe. Now, do you need waders yet? Maybe not. We'll get into that in a second. But if the water is not crazy cold, you could probably get away with wet wading, which is just wading without actual waders. So you could get a wading shoe that's designed to fit over a wader, pair of waders. And you can pair that with typically a neoprene boot, which just goes up to, mid calf maybe. And that provides a little insulation, a little cushioning inside that boot. But on the bottom of the boots, they're usually either rubber, felt, or one of those two things, but with some little spikes added. And that's going to really change depending on where you live. Some places don't allow felt boots. In general, the rubber boots are great for hiking to the river and not as great once you're in the river.
Very slick.
The felt are the opposite. They're bad. They're not great for the hike to the river, but they're better. They have better traction in the river. Around here, all of my wading boots are felt, and I put in a few metal studs in the bottom, which is kind of like a little aftermarket thing you can buy and drill into the bottom. So then if you're somewhere where it's cold or a time of year when it's cold, you will need waders.
Yeah. And waders will save you a lot of different ways because you're not going to die from freezing.
You're not going to freeze to death.
You can remember that when it's December. But with waders, there's a lot of different brands out there, right. A lot of different types. I mean, when I first got into fly fishing when I was 7 or 8, I had these neoprene. Actually, we started out with hip boots.
Yeah, me too.
The
hip boots.
Classics. I'm going to bring them back.
Yeah.
And then went to the neoprenes. And the neoprenes were, I remember they were warm and you were dry, but they were terrible for hiking anywhere because you were sweating all the time and they were just tight and nasty. And then I remember the late 90s.
You're going to get a call from the neoprene people.
Sorry. Call Confluence Outfitters and talk to Andrew. But then these breathable waders came on the scene. And I remember the first pair I had, I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's a game changer.
Totally. It was like I could do everything and I was warm the whole time.
Right. So you might be familiar with neoprene waders from duck hunting, let's say, where it's, you're just cold. You
or
need
the
to be
60s.
Warm.
Did I say that?
Or if you're an unfrozen caveman fisherman, you might be familiar with them. I still have a pair, and actually I just keep them in the drift boat in case I have somebody who comes down with like hypothermia.
Okay.
I could throw them into those.
You're such a great guide.
Yeah. But the breathable waders, and you can get them at various price points. They don't have to be horrendously expensive. They're a Gore-Tex or similar type breathable fabric, and you can layer underneath them. So you can be as warm or as cool as you like. Some people don't like the feel of the waders against their bare legs, so they'll still wear like a wading pant or just some lightweight layer underneath, even when it's warm.
Yeah.
It doesn't bother me. I'll just wear my shorts and socks and throw on my waders, and then you put the boots on. Oh, you know, all the breathable waders, even though they're not made out of neoprene, have a neoprene boot.
Yeah.
For comfort, and so that your wading boot's going to go over that neoprene boot, and you're going to stay dry until you either wade too deep or fall in or get a hole in them.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the price point, can we just kind of a recommendation? I mean, they really can be anywhere from $120 to $1,000.
Yes.
In some ways, you get what you pay for, and then in other ways, you can get some mid-level. Like I've had a couple pairs of $300 pair of waders. They're great. They're still right now no problems.
Right, that are lasting a long time. Yeah. So I mean, if this is going to be a one or two times a year kind of thing, you know, I think the main difference on the lower end models is just they're not going to hold up as long.
I mean, you will have pinholes in them very quickly.
Yeah.
So it's worth. I guess it's worth it. You know, when I was younger and I couldn't afford the super expensive ones, it was like, got the cheap one, but I bought a new pair every year.
Right.
You know, and then eventually it's like 3 years in, I could have just bought a, and I just, you know, I was 18 though. I didn't know any better, but
you would have had to put it on layaway.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it's definitely the waders though, a lot of it depends on how long you're going to, or how many times a year you're going to fish. But it makes sense to buy a pair that's going to last you for a while.
Yeah,
I think that's
right.
fair. Yeah,
and I mean, you can go nuts on waders. So some of the nicer ones are convertible, which means they, you know, like there's chest waders. Most waders are chest waders, which just means they come up to, you know, your sternum. You know, maybe. So some of the nicer ones are convertible, which just means it's easy to roll them down and make them into basically a pant length wader, which is nice on a hot day.
Yeah.
You can also get, and I love my pair of pant waders.
Game changer.
Because there's a lot of wading that we do where I'm never going to go really deeper than my knees.
That's why I'm telling you, bringing back the hip waders is going to be the move, man.
Oh man, I don't know about the hip waders. I feel like I'm just always inches from filling them up with water.
That's all I did when I was a kid. Yeah, so the pant waders are a game changer. But also like some of the more expensive ones have the zipper, which is kind of nice in certain scenarios.
Right. The zipper thing, I'm torn. I have a pair of the zipper waders now, and the thing I don't like is the zipper blocks the pocket in the front. Like if you want to put your hands together to keep them warm.
Oh yeah.
You can't really do that with those.
That's why you're supposed to put hand warmers in.
Oh,
did you know that?
Hand warmers. Wow. Yeah.
You have neoprene waders in your boat? I got a lot of these little hand warmers. So we got wading boots, waders, and there's a variety of, and so where we fish a lot in Northern California, we really will go. I mean, there's times where I'll go out and I'll be wearing sandals, you know, because it's like, you know, really easy. And then to the winter steelheading where we have 2 layers of something underneath our waders and we're trying to survive and we don't want to get wet at all. So, but a good pair of waders can be a real good investment.
Absolutely. When you get to this point where you're like, man, fly fishing's for me, and you're going to be doing a lot of wading, a nice pair of waders is going to pay off for sure.
Yeah.
So we've got rods, reels, line, flies, different ways to wade. And on the wading, anytime you're wearing waders, make sure for safety purposes to wear a wading belt. That way when you fall in, the water creeps in much more slowly, not all at once.
And this way we won't get canceled on social media for not mentioning the wading belt, because every time I'm in a picture without one, somebody in the comments, where's the wading belt?
Yeah.
So there you go.
Yeah.
Waders, wading belt, wading boots, but also wading staff is also probably a good thing for sometimes.
It depends on where you are. I think that's a very location specific kind of
Because
thing. I mean, here we need one. I mean, for the weighting we do around here.
Because I saw this happen one time. It was really cool. I was on the upper stack, and this car pulled up, and out got this guy, and he was wearing like the entire kit. Yeah. And I just was like, hey, how you doing? And he's like, I just stopped at the fly shop. And I was like, yeah, because he still had tags.
Everything. He's got the tags.
Yeah, it was awesome. Super nice guy. Yeah. And yeah, he got outfitted. And so but it was interesting because, so he's on the upper stack. He had the wading boots, the waders. He had this really brand new, nice vest. Yeah. And then but the best part is he also had a sling pack with the vest.
Oh, okay. Wow.
They gave him everything, right? And a wading belt and a rod. And so, I mean, talk about what do you like? Do you need a vest and a pouch?
That's a lot. That's a lot of stuff. Well, we should talk about vests.
Yeah. Let's do it. So you still wear one?
No,
every day.
I haven't worn a vest.
You don't wear one around town?
No sweater vests, no fishing vests, no hunting vests.
No vests.
No. So a vest is a very like fishing. Yeah. Kind of thing to have. I mean, I know you don't have to fly fish to have a fishing vest.
Most people have one of those. Right. I don't wear one either, though.
I don't think I own one now. I think when you're just getting started, like a fanny pack or something really basic is all you're gonna need. Yeah. Like
pocket.
A pocket. Like because you're gonna have some flies, some terminal tackle. Not a whole lot of stuff when you're new. Yeah. So. When you get more serious, then you'll realize you have a lot of stuff you want to take with you.
And so there's a number of so we're talking about extra gear. Yeah. And so just for some of those things, it'd be fly boxes, leader, tippet,
weights, indicators.
Another fly box for the other types of flies.
Your extra reel.
Camera. Yeah. Bottle of water. Sunscreen. Flask. Yeah. So. So there's fly vests are real popular, or historically were kind of like what every fly fishing person had. Yeah. Every picture you ever see
had to have a vest.
Had to have one. Yeah. And now there's a lot of different. You mentioned like a little hip pack type of thing.
Yeah, sling packs, which can kind of you throw them behind you to get them out of your way, and then back in front when you want to get in there. Chest packs, which are just in front all the time. That's what I used for ages. Now I've got more of like a big waterproof hip pack kind of thing. Yeah. And it's not the best because everything's all in one compartment. I like, a more dedicated fishing vest or fishing chest pack is going to have different little compartments to put different things in. So at some point you'll probably need something like that to carry your extra stuff.
So because again, so some people really like the vest still. Yeah. Like I've got, it's funny, I've got clients that'll come fish with me that we do not use any of their stuff. Yeah. Okay. I got but they still
don't want to wear their vest.
Yeah. I'm just like, okay.
Yeah. But they're like jingling the whole day with all the stuff coming off their vest.
I'm just curious because like my preference, I stopped using the vest partly because I just didn't like the weight of it. It was just so like, because
it's ungainly.
It just didn't feel comfortable. I've gone to the sling pack myself because I kind of like being able to have something over my shoulder and then get to it quickly. And the one I use has a couple of little compartments, but it's not waterproof like yours. I know yours is very handy with the waterproof side. What are the pros and cons of the different packs? Because a lot of this is preference. Right? Yeah. Just out of curiosity, what are your thoughts?
I have a thought about vests, which is like I think they'd be really comfortable if you actually didn't put anything in any of the pockets. Then they would work really well. Yeah.
Note to self: empty
the pockets, and the vest will work.
It's really great. Light now.
Yeah. I felt like I could carry a lot more tackle in the chest pack when I used to do a ton of walk wade. Yeah. Guiding, and when you're guiding, you need way more stuff than when you're actually fishing for yourself. So it's a whole other ball of wax. But
actually that's something relevant for I think listeners and viewers because like I've gone through these phases where it's like when I go fly fishing on a river, I do have to have everything I own, including all my striper, salmon,
just
steelhead.
all my gear.
Yeah, and it's like
Has
one
to be
day you're like, wait,
on my person.
yeah. Well, there's going to be that random steelhead in that non-connected to the ocean river,
Right.
you know. So it seems like real common is you start out and you kind of like accrue gear.
Yes.
And you go through the phase of like having it all, and then one day you realize that all you need is one of those little fly pucks and a little thing of tippet.
Right.
And you're like, that's it. Like,
Yeah.
Like, I don't need weights. These flies are weighted. So,
Well, and if you know, as when you're just getting started, yeah, I mean, you might just have that, little tiny box of flies and some floatant, and a spare leader. But the couple things we've neglected to mention, like tools. So like pretty much no matter what, you're at the minimum, you're going to want to have nippers to cut your line, and a hemostat to like remove to debarb barbed hooks, smash those down, and to release a fish if the takes a fly kind of inside the mouth.
Yeah.
So those two things are really a must.
Or in your hand.
Yeah. Or
if you're first starting, let's just be honest.
Yeah. You hook
and
yourself.
Also you've been guiding for a long time too, I've heard.
Yeah.
Not me.
Yeah. No, well, it could happen.
Yeah, it could happen. Yeah. So those are some tools that are important to have. The clippers, nippers, and then some type of a wrench or not wrench.
Yeah. Flat jaws though. Yeah. Because if on the little hemostats, if they have little serrated jaws, they won't smash the barbs.
Yeah.
And you'll see them that have half flat and half kind of grippy.
Are there other tools that you?
I always carry a little pair of folding scissors, because sometimes when you get tangled up so badly, like the nippers just aren't going to cut it. You just have to go to the scissors.
I generally break out a chainsaw at that point. I just got a good one. And then probably Polaroid sunglasses would be a good thing to have
for safety and just for helping to see the bottom of the boat.
And as you very eloquently pointed out last time, suntan lotion would also be.
Yeah, you've recovered a lot.
Yeah, aloe vera is. It was way worse than I even realized.
Yeah,
and I was like,
Well, why were they making fun of my face so much?
These guys are so mean. Why was?
Yeah.
Okay, so we got from fly rod, fly reel, fly line, leader, tippet, flies. We talked about wading boots, waders. We talked a little bit about vests. And so a lot of that's preference, whether packs and these little tools.
Yeah.
Is there anything else?
I think that's a great start. Fishing license.
Yeah.
Just depending on where you're at.
Please.
And your age, you might need one. So I think that's.
Yeah. So, we have a program, right, for people trying to get into fly fishing. Because I do think, like, my journey into fly fishing, I was like 6 when I got a fly rod put into my hand in Alaska for salmon, and it was like no casting.
Caught one.
There's a million, and you're just flipping. And it was a couple years later, I was watching my uncles actually casting a fly rod.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And it didn't have this big clunk of weight on it like my setup, And I was like, oh, that's cool. So I tried it, and it was a disaster. And there was no YouTube back then. And it wasn't until I had somebody actually who was a fly fishing, a dry fly, just like loved dry fly fishing, who could cast a rod really well, who took me we actually went to a golf course. Yeah. And on grass, and he kind of showed me how to do it. And that was really helpful for me. So I always tell people, like, YouTube can be really helpful now. Yeah. I do think there's a lot of great tutorials, but there's also something really nice about having someone who can actually be there on the spot to say, hey, you're doing it wrong. Right. Because that's where YouTube stops. That doesn't. Yeah. Although maybe we could say in this video, you're doing it wrong. Yeah,
probably.
That's it. Yeah.
Odds are good.
Yeah.
So I think I had a really similar experience where, I was about 15 maybe when I started and tried to do it all on my own, and just crashed and burned and sucked at it. But I had some family friends who knew how to cast a fly rod, who helped me out. So resources when you're other than YouTube, which is great. So your local fly shop would be a great place to start, because oftentimes they have casting lessons that you might have to pay. They might be free. You never know. So that's a great place to start. Your local fly fishing club. You might not well, you might be surprised to find out that your city or area probably does have a fly fishing club.
Yeah.
So most, mid to large size cities or areas do have fly fishing clubs, and they have a ton of free activities from fly tying, which is making the flies, to casting and to actual outings.
Yeah, fish outs
To actually go fishing.
In a lot of those clubs too, I've noticed the guys who have been and the gals who have been doing it for a long time, they are very happy to help out.
Oh,
I mean, I just think that's really cool.
Yeah.
Like, hey, we've guided some of them. We're like, oh yeah, I brought such and such guy. This is his first trip.
Yeah.
It's like, oh wow, that's awesome. Yeah, I've been kind of tying some flies with them, showing them how to cast.
Yeah.
And I'm generally like, oh, now I have to erase all of that. So no, it's good. Yeah.
Start over.
Yeah, start over. Yeah.
So your local fly fishing club is a great resource. So now, if you want to go the route of paying for professional help, like a guide, so we have a ton of people who come to us to get, for their first fly fishing experience, or maybe they've done it a couple times, but they're like, "Whoa, I'm kind of out of my depth here."
Yeah. Or they'll say, "I want to actually catch a fish." That's often
right. I've done this 10 times and I've caught nothing. So I want to maximize my time and hire a guide.
Yeah.
So we guide a lot of people, and I think we call it our Learn to Fly Fish program. And we have two main recommendations, and it kind of depends on how much time you have and what your goal is. So for some people who, if you want to be a DIY angler, a do-it-yourself fisherman, and you want to spend your day with a guide and get as much out of it as you can so that you can go on to do it yourself on your own without the guide. I think it's really hard to beat a day of wade fishing where you actually get your feet wet in a river here in Northern California.
Because you're going to learn how to read the water partly too.
Right.
You're going to get a lot of skills that you can take on to the next trip that you do.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you'll be able to learn multiple skills. I mean, in a typical day of an introduction to fly fishing with the guide on a small stream, you're probably going to learn how to do dry fly fishing, nymph fishing, which is subsurface fishing, and maybe even dry and dropper fishing, which is kind of, you're doing a little bit of both at the same time. So you're going to learn how to read the water, because you'll see, what kind of water the guide, fishes and what kind of water you pass by, and you'll learn about how to be safe in the river. Wading safety is really important. And just the casting techniques for the basic, fishing techniques that we're going to do. So for the DIY angler, I think that spending a day on a smaller to mid-sized stream with one of our guides is a great way to go. You'll get a ton out of it. The other good way to go, so one downside to getting your feet wet is you're going to need waders and boots. You're going to need a little bit more gear. Logistically, it's just somewhat more challenging. However, we have Reddington waders for rent boots. And boots.
Yeah,
so we have everything you need, small rental fee, and we'll take care of you on the waders. So really, you can come with just your license, and we can still do that kind of a trip. The easier trip logistically is to do a drift boat trip. So this could be on the lower Sacramento River in the Redding area or Red Bluff area, the lower Feather River near Oroville, the lower Yuba River near Marysville. Those are all great places to do a kind of a first real intro to fly fishing. And the beauty of that drift boat trip is just that you don't have to wade fish, so you don't have to mess with waders and boots. When the weather's nice, you can jump in just dressed like we are right here.
Yeah, this is your
fishing.
This is my guide outfit right here.
So it's easy logistically to get to the river because they're more in the valley. They're a little closer to home maybe than, a walkway trip up in the mountains. It's, you don't need really any gear. And you're going to learn a different set of skills, but it still provides a great introduction to the sport and this, the skills that you're probably going to learn: handling line, nymph fishing, playing fish,
Yeah.
mending, those will serve you well no matter where you go. And so that might be a better trip if you're thinking, man, this fly fishing looks cool. I just want to check it out before I really dive all the way into this.
Yeah.
I think a drift boat trip's a great way to go.
Yeah. Wouldn't you say too, a big part of this, so because people call you to, I guess, organize these, but you're going to eventually talk to your guide and telling your guide, hey, this is my first time. I'm really wanting to ... because that's really helpful from a guide's perspective.
Yes.
Because some of those, even those drift boat trips, we can cater if you want to get out and wade a little bit too. There are some you don't need. We could do it in our sandals, things like that. So I think it's helpful to.
I think communicating with your guide or outfitter about your goals for the trip is of paramount importance.
It just helps give some expectations, and then also know what the goals are to get right.
And they all might also, if you communicate those goals and expectations, that's going to inform their decision on which guide they put you with.
Yeah.
Because some guides are more like, I just want people who are kind of polished anglers, and we're going to go just catch as many fish as we can today, and that's what I like to do. And other guides prefer, to guide beginners, and some guides do it all. So I think that's really important to communicate to the guide that you book. We have almost everybody on staff is just dynamite with beginners.
Yeah.
So
those trips are actually a lot of, from a guide, they're actually a lot of fun, right?
Yeah.
Seeing someone, there's a lot of different feelings coming into the flight, right? Because you can be a little afraid, a lot of anxiety, or like super excited.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different things. But watching people when they pick it up and catching their first fish is like, it's hard to beat seeing that.
It's really fun.
There's a little twinkle in our eye, like, I remember when I was 8.
That's right.
So whatever.
I vividly remember the first fish I caught on a fly.
Yeah, me too. Yeah,
it's like I'll never forget it.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to do this for the rest of my life.
Yeah,
yeah. So that's cool. So we the Learn to Fly Fish program. There's a lot of different places to do it at. We have all the gear. I mean, you really don't even need to have waders or anything if you're going to do a walk and wade.
Right.
We provide flies, rods.
Yeah. Lunch.
Yeah, lunch. Yeah, too. Okay. Yeah. Well, that's cool. I can't think of anything else, but I mean, I feel like I can learn how to fly fish now. This is great.
Yeah, I think you might be able to go out there and catch a fish now.
I'm gonna go do it now. Yeah. So cool. Well, hey, thanks for listening, watching. It would be great if you could like, subscribe, follow. We are on Facebook. We are on Instagram. We are on YouTube, and we are on TikTok.
Oh yeah.
And you've been arguing to bring back MySpace for a long time, and I'm going to just say we're going to do it.
Oh, we're going to do it.
We're going to do it.
Okay.
All right. Next step.
Okay.
So, if you have any questions, leave a comment below, and we'll do our best to get back to you. You can also give Andrew a call. And then if you have an idea for a future podcast, a topic that you'd like us to tackle, leave that in the comments too, and we'll do our best to throw one together. So thanks for listening.
All right, thanks.